So today, we're talking about making space. And making space is a very interesting thing because I think we all, when we think about expansion, we're like, yeah, I want to expand. Or, I want to feel more in my life. We talk about making space, we're like, yes, I would love more space in my life. But if I say, you know how you make that space? You go, no, how do I make that space? You let certain things go. Oh. And all of a sudden we're like, well, I don't need that much space. I'm okay. I like this. It's all right. Like, you see, when we make space, what that means is that we are releasing that which is no longer needed. That which we've been holding on to out of conditioning, fear, attachment, so many different things. I love whenever people ask me in these kind of talks, they're like, you always talk about letting things go and not being attached, but how? How do you let it go? I go, stop holding on. It's that simple. If you're like my wife, she looks at me whenever I say that and she's like, that's too simple, tell me more. When I say, don't hold on, it means realize that there's a lot of stuff that you're attached to, that you're holding on to, that you don't need to. We think that we do because at some point we needed that thing. And when I say need, there's a specific definition there. A need is for your survival. A need is your food, your air that you breathe, the water that you drink. This is needs. You absolutely need this in order to survive. The majority of what we have in life, though, are wants, desires, things that we get to enjoy life with, right? You hear it all the time, I need more money to do this. Do you? You won't die. You might not live as comfortably, but you won't die. But even that, you might live more comfortably. There's a lot of stress with a lot of money. And so we start to realize this difference, and when you do, you relax a little bit. When you're not taking everything in life and thinking that it's a need and then holding on to it, right? Maybe it's an article of clothing or something that you have at home, and you've been gathering and gathering, right? And all of a sudden, you've got all these things. Some of them don't even fit you anymore. But you're like, yeah, but maybe one day, this will fit, or I can pass it down to somebody else, or there'll be a value to it. I don't want to let it go. But your closet's full. And you're like, I want to make more space, but you can't because you won't let go of anything that's in there. Christina knows that I have a cabinet, and she's not allowed to touch anything in there. And you know what's in there? Empty boxes. I like empty boxes because every so often there's a good use for them. That's my vice, right? We all have something we're holding on to and we're not letting go, creating space, making space for it. So really the very first step of anything, if we're going to make space in our lives for the things that we really want. Actually, let me get a little measurement real quick. How many of you, and you can do it by how high you raise your hand, how many of you are living the absolute ecstasy of your life? Everything, all that you want is already there. Right? And some of you, your hands aren't even up. And I call that weight. Right? There's something holding you back because you haven't made space to let it rise. And it's not always, you can put your hand, thank you. It's not always physical possessions that are holding us down, or physical things, or people. Sometimes it's just the thoughts, the beliefs. Actually, most times, it's the thoughts and the beliefs. That's what's really holding you down. Even now, I'm willing to bet that some of you who didn't raise your hand very high, you were like, well, there's things I have, but I don't know if I really deserve them. I don't know if I want, I'm probably going to lose them. And you kept your arm down. What would happen if in life, to make space, we simply gave ourselves permission? Because in giving ourselves permission, we take all those excuses and reasons that we can't have something, and we say, I'm just going to put that over here. I'm going to say, why not? Sure, let me go for it. Let me at least say yes to possibility. I like this idea. Yes to possibility. It doesn't mean you're fully invested or committed yet, but at least say yes to the possibility. When I work with clients one-on-one, this happens all the time. They've come, they have something they very specifically want, they've been trying to manifest it, they've made vision boards and affirmations, and they've been doing course after course, and they're like, I just want this, and this and that. Let's say it's a beautiful love in their life. And they're trying to manifest this, and they're doing all the work, and it's not working. And if that's the case, I always ask the same question. I go, oh, do you think you have permission to have love in your life? And when they really ask themselves, if they've said yes to that possibility for themselves, it's a no. And that's why it's not working, no matter what they do. Their desire is strong, but they haven't said yes to it being possible. Isn't that interesting? So many of us are doing so much towards the things that we want, but we haven't said yes to it actually being possible. And it's because we looked in that closet and we're like, well, it's full. There's nothing else can fit in there. I've got my childhood stuff. I've got these connections. I've got that. I'm sorry, there's no room for my dream love. I wish there was. Maybe if I got rid of something. So why are we holding on? That's the question. Why are we so attached to certain things in our lives? And I think a big piece of it is it's the way that we protect ourselves. Right? So much of what we're holding on to is in some way connected to a sense of survival. It can be a sense because of identity. Maybe you've got possessions, a nice car, a beautiful home, a house, this or that, even our partnerships. And we're like, oh, but if I lose them, I don't know who I am anymore. So I can't. If I lose the house, then I don't know who I am anymore in this neighborhood or this community or in this circle. So no, I can't. Or even a job, that's a big one. People hold on to jobs that they are miserable in because of the identity to it. They think, but I can't do anything else. I've never learned anything else. Did you learn that to do that? Yes. Oh, you can learn something else. And so it's these protective measures, and those protective measures, like that weight I was talking about before, we've carried them like this armor, and it makes it really hard to move because there's no space. But if we can start to make space, and what that means is start to find safety. That's why I really love that was the word you used. Because the first step you have to do in order to let go is find safety. It is almost impossible to let go of our attachments, which are there because they gave us familiarity and safety, if we don't have other safety. People stay in toxic relationships, toxic jobs, toxic environments, because it's familiar. They know it. They're afraid of what they don't know. And so somewhere, kind of weirdly, that's their safety, only because they haven't realized there is a deeper safety that they could have. And I'm going to give you the easiest way that I can define safety. So a lot of times we think of safety as certainty, but nothing is certain in life. I'm sorry to pop the bubble, but nothing is certain in life. We have no idea what's going to happen in the very next moment. I could start singing. You don't know, right? You don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. You could start singing. So I throw it out there, making some space. But because of that, certainty is not how we're going to find safety, but rather the way I would like to define it is when you feel ease in your body. When you feel ease, meaning you can be relaxed. You could have $1 million in the bank account and still be walking around like this, waiting to lose it. Because that's what I think a lot of people do. They accumulate more, they get the things that they want the most, and all of a sudden, their mind shifts to, well, I got it now, but I might lose it. Oh, new thing to worry about. New thing to find safety and hold on to with. Safety is when you feel ease, and the greatest ease you can feel is when you start to actually get clear about what you actually need and want in your life. And from that, you start to drop into the body, senses. It's also about being present, because a lot of times we're waiting for what might happen later. And you know where you're the only place, actually, that you do have certainty? Right now. That's the only place that you do have certainty. And you want to know the measure of that right nowness? The body. The mind is reflective. It's always looking backwards to see what has happened and what could happen. But the body is present. And so it's beautiful. You guys are here in a place like the yoga barn because you're doing embodiment practices. Whether that's yoga or breath work or even chanting or even sitting here. These are practices where you're feeling something again. So we start to find safety through presence, through ease, and also through just asking ourselves. This is a secret ninja strategy. Yes! If you've been to my heart talks or heart journeys or anything with me before, and you hear me say ninja strategy, you can do a wacha with me. We're going to do it again. Ninja strategy. Wacha! I love that. Safety, ninja strategy for it. You don't have to do it. Here's the strategy. You ask a very simple question. You ask yourself, am I safe right now? Goes back to the presence. Am I safe right now? Because your mind will immediately be like, yeah, I'm safe now, but I don't care about later. Right now. Are you safe right now? And I can tell you right now that if you have the luxury to ask that question, you're safe. Physically, you're safe. Because if you're standing in the middle of a highway and a car is coming at you, you're not asking questions. You get out of the way, right? Any kind of affirmations or things that we focus on, pretty much when we focus on what we want, what we're doing is we're going, ooh, I want that. And we do this, right? When we want to receive something, do we go like this? No, we go like this. If somebody comes up to give you a hug and you don't really want the hug, you're like, you give them the shoulder, right? Then they do that weird side hug. It's awkward. Right? Don't do that. But if you want the hug, you're like, I haven't seen you in 5 minutes. That's how we do it in Ubud. Right? If you haven't seen somebody in like 10 minutes, you give them another hug. When we're ready to receive something, we open, we create space. When you're making affirmations about what you want, you start to open because as you repeat it, the things that you've been afraid of, the things that you've been avoiding, the other things that you've been putting so much attention on starts to shift. And you start paying attention to the things that you really want to fill your life with. So first we find that safety in the presence of this moment. Another word for that would be acceptance. Now this is going to be a stretch because a lot of people have a different idea of what acceptance is. Most of the time we hear the word acceptance and we take it in that sense of, oh, something's going on, maybe you don't like it, but you just got to accept it. It's like a settling for, tolerating. That's not acceptance. That's tolerating. But rather acceptance is to recognize the reality in this moment. Because if you don't, you're playing with a story, a fantasy, your imagination. You can't do anything with that. It's like clouds. Acceptance is to be fully present and go, oh, that's what's going on. Okay, now I can do something with it. From here, I know what I'm working with. What I can let go of and what I can receive. This is how you start to make space. Is by understanding what you're actually working with in this present moment. And as we were saying, most of the things that we're carrying as the extra baggage in our lives is the preparations for something in the future. It's not what we actually need in this present moment. And our mind is a funny thing. The way that the mind works, the psyche, is its whole job is to protect you. It's to help you survive. And so what it does is it tries to look at your past. And it goes, okay, these things have happened. This is what I know could happen or couldn't happen. I want to be prepared in the future. But your mind is also quite smart, and it knows it has no idea what's going to happen in the future. And so it doesn't go, okay, I'm pretty certain that this is going to happen, so I'll just bring this one thing that we need. Maybe we're going to miss the bus, and I'm going to need an extra snack because I'm going to be sitting outside, so I'll just bring the extra snack. But your mind doesn't know if that's all that's going to happen. Your mind is like, well, it could be you miss the bus, it could be that you fall down, you hurt yourself, it could be that you have to climb a rock face and steal an egg from a vulture and take it down to... You don't know what it's going to be, and so what's your mind do? It brings the rock climbing gear, it brings the, something to distract the vulture, it brings all sorts of stuff with you. What's that?
That's my back.
That's your back, see? And we're all carrying a background like that to be prepared for everything. Well, that's a lot of weight and a lot of space being taken up. So when you start to get present and you notice that the only things that you actually need is what you have right here, then you go, oh, I can let this piece go. And I feel lighter. Ooh, that lightness gives me the confidence to take a step forward. And now I realize I only need this, I can let that go. I only need this and I can let that go. I only need this and I can let that go. And you know what's happening in all of that? Reality. Because reality is actually in that pattern all the time. Releasing, receiving, releasing, receiving, releasing, receiving. It's not collecting. If you look at nature and you look at the trees and the leaves, does it try to hold on to every single leaf even when it's starting to wilt? No, it releases it, lets it go, because it's sure that it's going to grow a new one when needed. We can start to live our lives in the same way. We make space by realizing that there is an abundance coming towards us. But if we're facing the wrong direction, we're looking at our history instead of our possibility, then we're going to be stuck on things that are leaving us. And we're going to hold on. But if you know more is coming, you're going to get stuff out of the way real fast. And it's a really beautiful feeling when you do that, when you actually start to release the things you don't need. When you have a good cry. Anybody in here had a really good cry? And you probably were saving it up for years, weren't you? Right? All the emotions, every time something happened, you took it and you saved it. Obviously, it's easier to, with ease, focus in on something, cultivate it, when we know that's what it is. But if the mind doesn't really know what's going to happen, it's like pinging all over the place, trying to figure out, like, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. This is where the beauty of our own power comes in. Because what we choose to focus on becomes the only thing. Because it's a choice point, right? It's only in our mind that we think, well, maybe it could be that, maybe it could be that. And then we're separating out our energy, our attention, our focus. But if we can get really committed to something, I'll use relationship as a really good example. So often, Christina and I, we see this, especially we do a lot of couples coaching for people, and we see couples will come in, and the first question we'll ask them, did you choose to be together? Did you choose to be together? They're like, yeah, of course we're together, like we chose to commit in. So no. Did you choose the relationship of being together? Not that it happened, it settled, or that you were dating for a while and it felt good and you felt, well, that's the next step. But did you make a conscious choice, intentionally say, I choose you instead of all these other possibilities? And when we do that, even if the other possibilities are there, we're not paying attention to them anymore. Because you choose. And then you create a container around it, right? That container might be a game plan of how you're going to cultivate that thing, relationship, for instance. And you start moving in that direction. Now, all of it also requires, though, that first, you get present to all those possibilities. And that's a bit of the tricky part, because we get distracted. We get into that presence, we're not so afraid of the things we're losing, we start to make some space, and then we're like, whoa, there's so much out there. It's like a candy shop. What do I start with? Choose one and cultivate. I'll use the Hindu philosophy that all paths lead to the same summit, right? And it's the same in life. Because the summit, the top of the mountain, the goal is always the same thing. It's a feeling. What we desire in life, almost every single time, is a feeling. We think that we get it through these other things, but it's the feeling itself that we want. If I asked all of you right now, is there anybody in here who does not want to be happy? I didn't think so. So I know for a fact that everybody in here would appreciate receiving happiness, to have moments of happiness in your life, right? That's one of those feelings. There are feelings that we all pretty much agree on as human beings that we would like to have. Safety is another one. Ease. Abundance, expansion. All of these different things. Because I think the thing that people are afraid of, when we start to make that space, when we start to feel these things, then we tend to make structures around ourselves to have an idea of, okay, I know where the perimeter is here, I know where the wall is there, I have familiarity. When stuff starts to get too big, let's say you go into a room, or we'll use IKEA as a good example, right? Any of you gone into an IKEA? How many of you got lost? Right? It's built that way. That's a little sneaky. But it's because the way that it's set up, it's got so many different areas and all this stuff, and it's so big that you don't know what's all the way on the other side. And when you don't know, that's the thing that scares us. Because we want to know. We think that if we don't know, then we're unsafe. But here's the beauty. We're only unsafe as long as we think that we do know. Whoa, sounds weird, huh? I am. People say that fear is of the unknown, but fear, I believe, is actually of the unknown that we think we know. Because when you're afraid of something, let's say, for instance, you're going to go to a yoga class and you've never done yoga before. And in your mind, you're like, what if I suck? What if I can't even, touch my knees? What if other people are, floating? How am I going to do this? And so there's all these what ifs of the worst case scenarios, and you're projecting your fear of a known event. You're saying, I think maybe this could happen, and I don't want that to happen. But let's say we take all those knowns out, all the things that you might say, what if, and you said, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm curious, though. Oh, that's powerful. I don't know what's on the other side of this mountain, this room, this experience, but I'm ready to find out. But if you project, what if it's a monster? What if it's this? What if I lose myself? What if that? Now you're actually just fulfilling your own focus. So you can first embrace, I don't know, and then second, actually go, and I would like it to be this. Because then you're going to start to guide your steps, your actions, your behaviors. Manifesting in this world is not a magical thing, really. What it is us giving ourselves permission. The first thing, we give permission by creating space. The second thing, we give permission by giving focus. And as we do that, we start to notice the things that were already there and act on them. We're giving ourselves the permission to act on things that we didn't before. We've been talking about making space. And in making space, we create the unknown. Because that's the only place that space can be, isn't it? Because anything that's known is already taking up space. And so really the biggest invitation I can give you guys today is give yourself permission to embrace the unknown. With a curiosity and an excitement and even a focus to see if within that unknown you can find what you want. And you also get to create spaces in your life, kind of like challenges, but not the ones that you run away from, but the ones that help you expand, grow, trust. And I'm going to do a little bit of that right now as well as I summarize today on this topic of making space. All of you have these little QR code things at the front of your mats. You can flip those over. And there's a word on the other side there, and I hope that word has a connection to you. Every time I get to do this, it's always interesting to see people flip into oh, what? That's amazing.
I just wrote this word.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes. There are no synchronicities or coincidences. There is just our focus noticing things. And so, with these words, what I want you to do is put it back at the top of your mat with the word face up. I'm going to walk around, I'm going to summarize what we've been talking about today with a spoken word based on these words as I walk around and look at what each one of them is. This is me putting a little challenge to myself. And as I do that, when I talk about your words, see if there's even a more deepening of its meaning for you, a more expansion, a little bit more space. We've been talking today about making space. And as I just said, there's this sense when we step into the unknown and we start to do it more and more that we create confidence. A confidence within ourselves to consistently move and not stagnate in one place, because the only way that we can feel embodiment is to move through space. But we need that space, right? So we got to let go. We have to be willing to give what we've been holding on to, because whatever it is, it was trying to just pass through. And there's an empowerment in all of that, but you got to be accountable to who you are and what you need and what you want. Because in all of that, there's an authenticity you start to find of who you are. in your expression, in all of that which you have been attracting into your life. And when we do that, not only confidence, but empowerment. Because sometimes we think power is from outside of us. We try to grasp it and accumulate. That's more weight. Let it go. Instead, be consistent in allowing the accountability of things. And as we do that, there's going to be some structures, as we were just talking about. That's okay. Those are your boundaries. But I always like to say that don't create your boundaries just by barriers, because that's saying no to everything. But instead, make it with your clarity, and in so you show vulnerability. And the beauty is that when you actually create clarity and vulnerability, what happens is compassion. People come to you, they see and acknowledge what it is that's there and possible of how they can support you and you can support them, because maybe that's the definition of love. I always like to say that love is connection. It's how we start to bring in permission of others and ourselves to give and to receive in all the abundance that is life. And everything that maybe at one point we held as expectation, but now it becomes knowledge. And I say knowledge because expectations is often something that we are wishing for without communication. But if we actually start to express by showing ourselves, bringing down those walls, coming into a clarity of I don't know, then in that same empowerment of who we start to notice in our authenticity is also the possibilities that were outside those walls of the very things that you were wishing for. But you had to make space. And maybe the one-liner of everything we've just said is that making space isn't so much about growing bigger, it's about removing barriers, layers, conditioning, letting it all go so that you can invite something new. Thank you, everybody.